Okay, so just as we're waiting for people to start joining, I just figured it would be worthwhile to give people a couple of minutes and then we can get stuck in. Okay, so the numbers are still going to go up, but I figured we'll just get started. So welcome everybody to our second installment of Tech Connect. This one is Ready Steady Cloud, and we are very, very happy to be doing this in partnership with Hackajob. Today we're very fortunate to have Alan Canning and Kim Barrass do our panel discussion. Both are platform solution architects in Kenos. They have quite a treat for you. And then Matthew Downing, our platform capability lead, is also going to share what the ambitions are of the capability towards the end. And in between both presentations, there will be an opportunity for questions and answers. You will be able to share your questions in the bottom toolbar where it says Q&A, and then we'll start sharing those, and whatever questions that we do not answer today, we will be answering them and sending them back to you with answers following today's presentation. So Alan, without further ado, I will hand it over to you and Kim.
Sure, not a problem. Firstly, apologies. I've just realized on the screen it says August 2021. It is September, so apologies to everyone. So yes, look, hi everyone. Thanks Natasha and Hackajob. It's great to be invited along to talk to you today about some of the work that we get involved in across our platform's capability in Kenos and how it's making a real impact on the lives of people across society today. We'd like to touch upon what we've seen and experienced across industry in the past, how we're leveraging cloud technologies in the present, and also to touch on some of our predictions for the future. I'm going to talk a little bit about the past, the present, and then I'm going to hand over to my colleague Kim, who will make some bold predictions on the future of cloud. We'll have a wee bit of Q&A at the end, of course, before Matt Downing, our capability lead, will give a bit of an update on our aspirations and drivers within our platforms community. So we'll start off with some introductions. My name is Alan Canning. I'm a platform solution architect, and I've worked in Kenos for just over 10 years. I started back in 2011 as a placement student whilst in university. It's been the only company I've worked for, and I've been fortunate enough to stay and grow my career here over the past 10 years with Kenos, working with a variety of public and private sector clients, from helping to build the View driver license service for the DVLA back in 2014, allowing UK citizens to check their driving license information as well as share this with hire car companies, to building infrastructure that underpins services for UK police forces, as well as helping customers to move in-house global data centers and consolidate critical workloads, leveraging cloud technologies to do so. So I'm just going to pass over to Kim. Kim, do you want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely, thank you, Alan. I am also a solution architect and manager inside of Kenos. I haven't been here as long as Alan. This is into my end of my third year, started my fourth, I think. Prior to working for Kenos, I've worked for a number of different consultancies and was self-employed as a consultant for a long period of time, predominantly working with public sector organizations, big government departments, predominantly, and occasionally the finance sector. I've moved into Kenos, and for the past 3.5, 4 years or so, I have been delivering either solutions or maintaining existing platforms for a wide variety of different clients over a number of different industries. Thank you, Alan. Back to yourself.
Thanks, Kim. So just moving on from there, for me, I'm sure for Kim, it's been great to have had the opportunity to play a key role in helping customers that we work with not only achieve their goals to moving to the cloud, but also to guide them in how to use that effectively and efficiently. So for those of you who don't know who we are or aware who we are, we're Kenos. Here's a little infographic just to give you some facts and figures. So as I said, when I joined 10 years ago, the company was relatively small back then. There was only 250 employees. So today, our global footprint spans 2,500 plus employees. That's growing by the day. So a sustained and exponential growth that shows no signs of slowing down. It's a very exciting, dynamic, and ever-changing place to work. We're proud to consider ourselves cloud experts. We have a proven track record of successful delivery across multiple sectors and project complexities. We've been working with Microsoft and AWS for many years, with myself working almost exclusively on Microsoft Azure technologies over the past 5 years or so. As a company, it's important to realize and understand the needs of the people that we work with, which is why we're proud to hold and continue to grow our certifications across the big cloud providers. So the past, let's talk about the past and where we came from and what we used to work in many years ago. So if I rewind the clock 10 years ago or so and think about the work that we did, not just in Kenos for me and my role, but across industry and how it's significantly different to now. In platform engineering, there was not much in the way of things like continuous integration or continuous delivery. There was little to no automation outside perhaps a folder of scripts shared between colleagues to manage on-premise infrastructure that were highly customized for specific use cases. There would also have been a high number of engineers to a high number of servers. Maybe set these physical servers up, manage tape level backups, networking, keeping the lights on. We were in that traditional sysadmin space for both inside Kenos and for our customers, and it's where I started my own career really with Kenos. Back then, cloud platforms, whilst available, they were still in their infancy. The genesis of Microsoft Azure that we know today, formerly known as Windows Azure, was released in 2010. So in the grand scheme of things, not that old. It was released under the codename Project Red Dog, and it offered primarily infrastructure as a service. The exponential demand for commodity cloud platforms has skyrocketed since then. And this, I guess, is where we have seen things get real interesting. So let's fast forward really to today, and we live in a digital world where demand continuously outpaces the world's ability to scale, and with that, we've had some serious leaps in innovation that have made the realms of cloud computing very exciting. The likes of Azure, AWS, and GCP are the big mainstream players of cloud technologies, continuously updating, releasing new features and platform services that meet the requirements of their users. With each iteration, each year, bringing new and exciting technologies. Our own cloud strategy is fairly simple, and it aims to abide by some simple principles. We build upon our own expertise. So we keep up with industry trends, and we like to disrupt the market with new ways of doing things. We like to lead by example and challenge the status quo. We help our customers to not only migrate to the cloud, but more importantly, make the best use from it. And we strive to be about more than just technology. And one area that we are starting to see an increase in demand for is with our Migrate and Modernize offering, which I'd like to touch. And I'd like to touch on this area just with a bit of an example as well. So whilst migrating to the cloud is not new, right? People have been doing it for a long time. It's often the first step in a larger journey for an organization wishing to get their feet wet in cloud. Traditionally, this can be done by way of lifting and shifting workloads, but in doing so, doing that may not offer the best solution for them, thus not unlocking the potential opportunities to help grow their business. So there's a few steps in discovering that true potential, but I'd like to stay on the migrate and modernize path. Through experience of working with previous customers, it's important to learn upon the mistakes of the past to help continue to grow our expertise at a rapid pace, leveraging frameworks to do that. What's important to note is that every customer that we come across is different. So there's always going to be a level of customization required. And let's take the creation of a landing zone, for example. For those of you who don't know what a landing zone is, you've never heard of it, or you have heard of it, but you're not exactly sure of what it is. It's the underpinnings and a wrapper around the services within cloud. AWS and Microsoft, they offer their own frameworks, which can help in the creation and guidance to best suit each of their platforms. But taking Azure as an example, it's things like how to create a tenant for an enterprise organization. What does good identity and access management look like? What does a good network topology look like for the client? What does your management and monitoring look like? Disaster recovery, security and compliance, as well as platform automation and DevOps, an area that has seen significant leaps in the past few years. I myself have found my role moving over the past 10 years from writing those custom scripts for VMware environments to learning new technologies over time, such as Azure Resource Manager templates for deploying infrastructure, or using Terraform for cloud orchestration, to learning configuration management tooling such as Ansible and Puppet, as well as building continuous integration and continuous delivery pipelines through tooling such as Jenkins and Azure DevOps, things that we didn't do in the past 10 years ago. So what I've just mentioned, these are critical design areas that are extremely important to any organization when considering their cloud footprint. The good thing is most of it can be automated and policy driven. So once you have those fundamental building blocks in place, you can really move at pace. And I want to give you an example of that. Recently, Kenos worked with Public Health England to migrate the contact tracing and advisory service into Amazon Web Services during the initial and most critical stages of the COVID pandemic in 2020. This was an internally hosted service. We engaged with them 1 week before they were due to run a public pilot in the Isle of Wight. So as you can imagine, the time pressures involved here. With the public health team being relatively new, we helped them move their existing application to AWS in 6 days. So let that sink in. 6 days for moving from on-premise into AWS. It can often take organizations weeks and months to move their estate into the cloud, but to be able to move at a rapid pace here was critical, not to mention ensure the platform was scalable and secure at the same time. 2 weeks later, the service was rolled out nationally, with Kenos providing 24/7 support through our live ops teams. And in the first launch, of course, the first week of the launch, over 22,000 users used the service. After the successful migration and rollout, and after the first wave of the pandemic, when restrictions began to ease, it became clear that new functionality was needed to support a range of areas, including local and international travel, integration with other NHS services, data analytics and reporting requirements. And we took the responsibility for the end-to-end digital service, from research, service design, development, testing, operations, working at pace using AWS platform services to enhance and modernize their estate. The team averaged 2 to 3 releases per week whilst running a stable service that has served in excess of 11 million people across the UK, something that would not have been possible without harnessing the power of platform services in the cloud. So this is just one example of where we have been able to help migrate and modernize an organization for a key and critical service. Whilst I wasn't involved myself in this public health migration, on a similar note, I've been recently helping with a customer move from 3 global data center locations, which also included over 400 offices dotted around the globe, all interconnected to each other, into Microsoft Azure. This included moving over 12 services spanning development, UAT, and production workloads seamlessly into their own version of a secure landing zone, which we designed and implemented for them. There are, however, other greenfield services, not necessarily migrate and modernize, that we've helped play a key role in. My my colleague Kim on the call and I have both been engaged with DEFRA, who are the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, as a delivery partner to spearhead some of their architecture and operations that underpin over 11 key applications which were delivered in the lead up to the UK's exit from the European Union. A few examples of this being a food import service for animal products. Without it, the UK would not be able to import food into the country. The Export Health Certificate Service that allows businesses to export food products. The UK's Catch Certificate Service, an application that allows fishermen to certify their catches offshore and export to other countries. So as you can imagine, these services, they impact the lives of everyone in the UK, and they allow the flow of goods in and out of the country. Without them, we'd have a lot less food to eat. So these are pretty important services that help UK and DEFRA to function, and ones that Kenos have helped deliver. Hosted within the Microsoft Azure platform and using modern platform as a service services, CI/CD pipelines, processes and automation at their core. This is, in industry, everything is changing very rapidly. What we did in platforms 5 years ago is a lot different to what we do now. The services, features and tooling that we used in that DEFRA example, they didn't exist back then, or they have significantly changed, showing an increase in cloud platform maturity that includes more and more platform and software as a service offerings. The exciting part of our role and what we do day to day is keeping on top of those trends, standing up those secure digital services across the main cloud providers, using an arsenal of tooling, techniques and processes to automate, using reusable patterns and offerings to help with rapid deployment of these. So that's just a wee bit of a flavor of where we are today and how we use those platform services to really help our customers and make an impact to our clients. So at this point, I'm going to pass over to my colleague, Kim, who's going to make some bold predictions about where the future of cloud may be heading. So over to you, Kim.
Thank you, Alan. I'm not necessarily sure that these are going to be ridiculously bold. I think these are all fairly sensible predictions that most people will agree on. So the first thing I'd like to say is, Alan just mentioned, we are part of a platform's capability inside of Kenos that is consistently monitoring and looking forward to see how cloud is going to be used to try and predict how our customers are going to want to use cloud and be attracted to cloud. I think last year there was a survey that said 70% of large UK organizations are currently have some kind of cloud adoption, and 90% would like to see increased cloud adoption. Interestingly, deployment times being one of the key drivers rather than cost or scalability, which are one of the things that cloud is known for. So as part of that, we look forward and try and make some predictions about what those trends are going to look like. And I'll break that down to 3 different themes. If we can have next slide, please, Alan. So there are changes to software delivery, and this is how software developers change their approach to creating and releasing software. Secondly is a couple of points on some general cloud provider trends. These are trends that we see across multi-cloud rather than focusing on an individual cloud provider. And the third are just some generic benefits to cloud consumers and customers, which may not be as visible as some of the higher level elements that people go to cloud for. So first of all, we take a look at software delivery. And for each of these, I've listed 2 highlight elements and given a few examples. So the first thing that we see and have seen for quite a while now is that traditional software companies are delivering more and more of their software as SaaS services, which is software as a service. And this covers a whole gamut of different types of software, whether it is your CRMs, ERMs, and just general productivity suites. More and more companies are moving to deliver those as SaaS services. And as they are complex multi-tenant SaaS offerings, they are going to require scalability on demand. They are going to be wanting reduced costs. And so using an established and forward-looking cloud provider is going to be the most preferred option for people delivering this software. And we see that with all of the Office suites that are currently going, Office 365, Google Office. In terms of some of the collaboration software, I personally use a piece of software called Studio Binder, which was previously desktop-based, is now SaaS. That's hosted on AWS. And I suspect Anne may have already worked inside of Kenos on moving some hospital and health services to a multi-tenanted SaaS offering over the past 1 or 2 years. That is only going to accelerate, and I think that's a fairly self-explanatory observation. Next one, which is still very early days, is a move to ARM processing rather than x86 processing. ARM operates on the reduced instruction set and is per single instruction both faster and cheaper, and requires less heat management. So it drives data center costs down, which can be passed on to the consumer. Currently, AWS Graviton is operating in that space. And the reason why it is in changes to software delivery is because to benefit the most from the ARM architecture, software does need to change. It needs to be written for that processor type specifically to drive the most benefits from it. Next theme is looking at just some overall cloud provider trends. These are particularly interesting to us as a company. The first one I've mentioned here is weight of data gravity. If you Google cost of data storage over the past 10 years on AWS or Azure, you will see that the cost per gigabyte is trending towards 0 and is almost at 0 and is still incrementally moving closer to it. And if you also look at the sizes of data sets that many, even SMEs, but certainly larger industries are using, is increasingly either towards or in the multiples of petabyte size. Because of that, cloud providers may, in the future, and potentially already have, offered their data storage offerings at a loss leader. So they may not necessarily be profitable on their actual data storage costs, and instead look to generate revenue and profit from being able to surface insights from huge data sets. Whether that is by offering consultancy, which I'll come to sooner, excuse me, or providing additional services which provide meaningful analytics and insight on top of huge data lakes. The actual data storage will be offered at a loss, and that will generate a continuous feedback loop between cloud providers who want to lock in customers with cheap data offerings and increasing the business value from that data, which is where they will make revenue and profit. Similar vein, we think that the main cloud providers, AWS, Azure, and in the future, GCP, will focus more on the partnerships, like the partnership that we have with AWS and Azure, and we are working on partnership with GCP. They will focus more on those partnerships and offering consultancy to drive business value from their cloud offerings. So rather than offering cloud as a purely technical solution, which customers buy and consume, they will be providing very deep and very broad analysis of the business benefits of moving to certain cloud technologies and cloud infrastructure, and working with customers from a very, very early part of their cloud adoption strategy. And then the final theme will be on the two lesser known potential benefits in the future for cloud consumers. Excuse me. The first of which, and I'm going to do these in reverse order actually, is insourcing vendor products, because this one is happening already. So what we're going to see in the future, and we've already started seeing in AWS and Azure especially, is bringing in existing complicated vendor products and offering them as one of their branded cloud services. So we see this currently with Databricks for operating on huge big data. OpenShift has been brought into AWS, so you can deploy in OpenShift and use existing OpenShift topologies on top of the core AWS cloud network infrastructure. And we think that that will continue to happen, where previously some of these things might not have been expected to be cloud native. Cloud providers are going to embrace them and bring them into cloud, whether that's to offer a migration into cloud for complex workloads that previously might not have thought they could migrate to cloud, or just to offer an ease of migration in. This may again work similar to Waitive's data gravity, by potentially starting off as a loss leader to take those customers who use these complex products already. And the second one doesn't really exist yet, and perhaps it's maybe more hopeful than it is an actual prediction. But I do think we could potentially see some real tangible multi-cloud. And by that, I mean that we would have products and software, and Bunny Shell, you can go and take a look at, is something that wants to be doing this, that offer a cloud agnostic feature set, potentially quite a wide feature set covering most cloud capabilities, and provide a completely agnostic backend service to that feature, to those features or functionality. What I mean by that is, if you want to deploy a specific type of network with some specific requirements in, you could set that up in one UI or through one CLI or one coding language, and that would be transparently able to deploy to any of the large cloud providers. There are a number of very small solutions which currently do this. So IBM and Cisco both have very small, very focused products that can deploy storage and networks respectively into different cloud providers. But I do think potentially somebody like HashiCorp could be looking to do a version of Terraform that is more cloud agnostic in the future. And that would allow both migration from a customer point of view, or selection of features based on price or availability, and provide an easier route into the cloud and easier management of multi-cloud for our consumers. So they are my predictions. A lot of them I think are fairly safe ones, one or two potentially not. And I believe that takes us into a small Q&A session, Alan.
Perfect. The questions have actually been coming in quite well throughout. So I suppose the first question is, and I'd like to actually get both of your perspectives, Alan and Kim, on this. Do you think AWS will always have a monopoly on cloud?
Good question. Yeah, it's a very good question. So there, if you rewind the clock maybe 5-6 years ago, there were other small commodity cloud-based platforms that people were using. But the big players that we have seen, and the ones that we have partnered with, are really AWS and Microsoft Azure. And it really depends on the kind of technologies that a customer needs, if that makes sense. So yes, AWS, I think, will always have a very stead footing in the cloud or commodity cloud market. But equally, Microsoft and Azure and GCP are starting to come up a wee bit more as well. But yes, I don't see that going away anytime soon.
I would pretty much agree. I would say that although I think they are market leader, I don't think Azure is that far behind. So I'm not sure AWS on their own have a monopoly, but I think across the main three, there is a monopoly, and yeah, I think they will continue to be the leaders for a long time.
Perfect, thank you. I suppose one non-technical question would be more around what drew you both to Kenos. That was actually the first question that we've been asked since this started. So I suppose, Kim, going to you, what drew you to Kenos?
So I love this question because I never get to answer it enough. I worked in a consultancy firm a long time ago, 10 years ago, and I left because they were not very, in my opinion, forward-looking. They shall remain nameless in this answer. And I went consulting, and I was a huge evangelist of automation, of what was coming out in the form of DevOps. And I am from a developer background. I'm not from exclusively an ops background. And as I was consulting over a long period of time, there were few consultancies who I could actually agree with on their approach, how they build, how they worked with customers. And I had worked with a couple of government agencies and saw Kenos work. And they seemed to be taking an approach that I agreed with. They were very much modern thinking. They had great people working with them who sang their praises as a company. And I saw the role, and I was actually prepared to move to Belfast for this opportunity. And thankfully, they accepted, and they made me an offer, which I took, and I was able to continue working in the UK. But yeah, I would have happily moved to Belfast to take this role. The company and culture, I think, are fantastic. They are really, really top end of any IT company I've ever worked with.
I love that. Alan, what about you?
Yeah, like Kim, I love this question. So my journey in Kenos started over 10 years ago. I went to Queen's University in Belfast, and Kenos was a spin-off company from a segment of Queen's. So whenever they had their placement opportunities open up, there was a couple of different big IT companies dotted around Belfast that were doing a similar approach. But I was drawn to Kenos, well, I guess primarily through word of mouth. I did have a friend that did work in Kenos, but once I got in, I was a placement student for a year. I enjoyed the work that I was doing so much that whenever I returned for my final year in university, Kenos offered me a part-time role through my final year in Kenos. And then whenever I graduated from university, they offered me a full-time role. The one thing that stands out for me for Kenos is that there is a breadth of technologies that we work with. You're not confined in Kenos. We always make sure that we make the best choices for the customer at hand. But what means most important, or what's most important for me, is the people. So when I joined when there was 250 people, there was a family feel. You're able to walk down the corridor, and you knew a lot of the people and to say hello to, and everyone was very friendly. And as the company has grown into the 2,500 people we are now, it's still kept that family feel. It's Kenos is all about the people, and so for the company, the people come first. To the point where our CEO Brendan, for example, you could walk past him in the office and he would turn around and say hello to you by name. He has a very good memory where he knows everyone's names. I don't know how he does it, but it's very important for us to keep that family feel, which I guess it's why I've stayed here for so long. And I have an intention to keep growing my career in Kenos. And what we've seen with people who have joined Kenos is most people have a tendency to stay for a long time. So it's really good to hear.
Amazing. Yeah, I don't know how Brendan remembers all of our names. I really don't. But yeah, that's actually, there's a really good story from my perspective, but that's one I'll share at another time. But I suppose with the adoption of cloud, with COVID and everything, do you think COVID has increased the adoption of cloud, or do you think it was already on the rise?
So the adoption of cloud has consistently risen over time, over the past 3, 4, 5 years. I don't think there's going to be a let up in that exponential growth slowing down by any means. I guess it's quite my own personal view on this is, yes, we in Kenos have not been busier since the lockdown started and since the COVID pandemic kicked off, for our clients to increase their capability of using digital services within cloud. So my own personal opinion is yes, I think it has, but I don't think it's the aspirations of our clients anyway. But I think just with COVID kicking off, it's probably just accelerated that requirement. If you look at it, everyone's distributed now around the globe. Kenos are still largely, everyone is working from home. Our clients did the same at the drop of a hat last year. So that distributed working from going to in customer site. So for example, before the pandemic, I live and work in Belfast, but I was working for DEFRA at the time. So I was traveling to mainland UK. So my typical work week would have been, in the office potentially on a Monday. I would have got a red-eye flight out of Belfast on a Tuesday morning, and spent Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday in different, could be different cities throughout the UK, and it was very interesting. But then to go from doing that for a couple of years to just working from home full time, right? It was a bit of a culture shock for everybody, but I think just with everyone adapting to that way of working, it's made people realize that we can harness the power of cloud in a distributed working manner.
Kim, what's your thoughts on this?
I agree 100%.
Perfect. And then I think we've time for one more question. So how has moving to AWS cloud helped maintainability and security aspects of products at Kenos? Kim, I'll go to you first.
I'm not sure if I fully understand the question, if it's specifically about Kenos moving to AWS, but I'll just answer generically on how I would move somebody to AWS. So with the, whenever I'm developing a solution in AWS, we start off generally, as Anna mentioned previously, with the landing zone. So right from the very, literally the very initialization of a wide infrastructure, we have controls, governance, and mechanisms to release changes to that infrastructure that take into account security and maintainability. And we'll do that through a whole variety of measures, such as limiting privilege to generally to automation rather than actual people, having automation checks in place so that change is carried out only in a correct manner after passing automated gates, checking the consistency of both the infrastructure as code, which we universally use. We are not a company who ever does things by hand unless you absolutely have to. And maintaining the record of those through what are effectively commit and merge history in whatever SCM we tend to use. So treating that cloud platform as a piece of software that is controlled, fundamentally controlled from the get-go, means that we have limited deltas as the infrastructure grows and the service grows, which in itself helps maintainability and security by limiting privilege and having good IAM set up right from the start. And as we start developing and using that cloud infrastructure, we will have DevOps and effectively DevSecOps in place, meaning that we aren't introducing further problems as we're releasing software and expanding that as we go. So literally from initialization right the way through. That is generic because I would do that on AWS, and I'm sure Alan would do exactly the same on Azure. And in fact, I know he does because I'm working in DEFRA, which he helped set up.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't have very much to add there, Natasha, to what Kim said. But obviously, if for anyone who's been working with cloud technologies now for some time, will be aware of the shared responsibility model that cloud providers have. So, cloud providers responsible for the physical security of all of the data centers that they have around the globe, but they aren't responsible for the data that you host in there. So they do give you the controls to enhance security, whether it be network security, whether it be IAM. I guess there's lots of other. Take your pick here. So it's very important to understand those demarcation lines whenever you're working with cloud technologies, because it is one of the I guess historic, but it's still a concern whenever clients are they say, well, everything that we have, we've got hosted on premise here. We're aware, we know how it all plumbs together, and it's fairly highly secure. But I guess it's just dissecting that and understanding that, well, in fact, if you host services in the cloud, you can mirror or enhance some of that security that you have on premise. So there's just a wee bit of an understanding, and it's something that we do guide our clients towards.
Yeah. Well, I'm very conscious of time. Any questions that we didn't get round to in this round, we will come back to you with a response. But Alan, Kim, thank you so much. Really appreciated the presentation. It's very exciting to see the past, the present, and also the future and what we're looking towards. So Matt Downing is going to give us a bit of an overview now on the capability and the ambitions of the platform capability in Kenos. So Matt, it's over to you.
Thank you, Natasha. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Matthew Downing. I'm the platform capability lead at Kainos. I've have the privilege of being in this role since earlier this year, joining Kainos towards the end of last year, and found an incredible experience. One of those questions a little earlier about what drew us to Kainos really rings home pretty strong from most people in Kainos. For myself, last year, pre-lockdown, I was still very much a contractor and enjoying a bit of a financial high life and so on and so forth. And government was starting to hit us pretty hard, HMRC in terms of IR35. And that kind of led me to a decision to come out of contracting and take a bit of a sabbatical. And just as I took that, all the lockdown kicked in March, and pretty much watched a whole new world unfold. During that lockdown period, towards June, July, I started looking at going back to work and decided I would consider going back into more of a full-time role, and started looking for what I considered an ideal company to work for. Considering all the time I'd been in the past working as a contractor, I'd had a lot of autonomy and also didn't have to worry too much about various bits of politics, because you're in and out of different contracts. They're fairly short-lived. You get to do some effective work and then move on. Working in a company generally has a lot more implication in terms of dealing with people, especially on the long term. And so one of my greatest requirements in my mind around a company to work for would be one that is people-centric, one that's people-focused and really cares about the people that work for the company, care about their personal development, their career development, how they interact with each other and the overall effect on the company and well-being on everyone. I must have sabotaged about 40 interviews between July and December, whereas interviewing the companies and just decided no ways that, you know, the culture doesn't work, the financial drivers behind things don't work, or, you know, startup sort of stuff is way too much aggression around financials. And eventually, when I met folk from Kainos and then subsequently went into the interview process with them, they just ticked every box. You know, the people-focused piece is really the most important piece to me. And hence, after joining Kenos, when the opportunity came to take over the platform capability leads, I absolutely jumped at it. I thought perfect opportunity to not only immerse myself in the culture at Kenos, but also help lend a hand in developing it and bring it into the future. So a bit of a lengthy introduction there, but I thought that question was really well worth addressing. Yeah, so from the capability perspective in Kenos, platforms is one of our multiple capabilities that we have in our digital services practice. And from our perspective, we really want to build an industry-leading, engaged community of talented engineers and architects. And what I mean by that is people who are absolutely love technology, love development of stuff, love seeing how the new cutting edge, bleeding edge technologies start to evolve into something that brings value to customers, that brings excitement to your day at work, you know, makes you want to get up in the morning and, hey, you know what, there's this new thing coming up, or actually I've been solving this problem for ages and would love to share it with my community, and win both within the company and the broader community, and help driving where technology is taking everyone, you know, both country and worldwide. You know, that whole vision is really, really important, and people who can connect with that and associate with that and understand how that both improves their lives and helps other people's lives, you know, you can only win with that. So within that vision, we focus on 6 primary sort of goals, essentially. You know, one, the obvious one, career development. Anyone who joins Kenos, you will know from quite early doors that we are very career focused for you. We, you know, help you find both where your passion is and also where you may need to want to develop a bit more, get some stretched experiences. We're very, very hot on that. And we've got a strong people management structure within Kenos that falls within the capabilities that helps you throughout your development plan. From a community perspective, again, as I was mentioning before, there's a lot of emphasis on community within Kenos, very tight community, and in fact, call it a family. Yeah. We work very hard on that in terms of supporting each other, making sure everyone's well-being is good. You know, if anyone is struggling with anything, there's always loads of people who will support you and help you through that. On the positive side also, when anyone is successful, there's a lot of backing behind that, and you'll know that that success is never only on one individual. So there's a lot of strength in that. Another goal is growth. The growth is now our 2050 piece, or 2025 piece, sorry, in terms of doubling the population of Kenos to 4,000. This is stretching our comfort zone a little bit, but we are prepared to really take on that challenge. As you'll see, Kenos has been around nearly 30 years, and in that period they've grown to 2,500 people, which in my mind is a really responsible growth rate. And this new one, as we go up to 4,000, we're still staying within responsibility, but also looking after people and well-being throughout. Strategic partnerships, this, as Alan and Kim have hit on earlier on in the presentations, our key ones are AWS and Azure, but we also have lots of other partnerships that we invest in quite regularly. And it's a two-way street. Those partnerships invest in us in terms of helping with certifications and education piece, also connecting us with the right people within their organizations to get the right information in a timely fashion. Structured common resources. This is another goal set of ours. This is around not just templated and pre-known solutions that we've experience at other customers in order to help new people within Kenos or other people that are wanting to evolve their or develop their career and understand other ways of solving and addressing problems at various customers. And then thought leadership. This is paramount throughout the business, and is never such a thing as a silly question. And in our thought leadership piece, there's also the concept of the mentoring, which is bi-directional. You know, whoever you're mentoring is actually mentoring you too, because both of you have, you know, your own experiences in life. You've both walked your own paths in life, and you'll both have gained experience through that. And the thought leadership is very key around that, is developing people's ability to impart knowledge to others in the business, and also then be humble enough to take on knowledge from those you're imparting to. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. I suppose there's actually a really good question that's come in that somewhat ties in with our strategic partnerships and the development piece. So I suppose from all of your standpoints, Alan, Kim and Matt, how do you see the architects keeping up to date with new technologies other than the typical online training and videos?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, Matt might be best placed to answer this, but within Kenos, we formally support, you know, external training. So if you have an aspiration and it meets the capability goals, for example, you know, if you want to become an Azure certified solutions expert, for example, we fully support that. We actively advocate training as well. But on top of that, we also have internal communities. So for example, one of our colleagues runs what's called an Azure Shack, which is essentially you know, a community that's run every couple of weeks to give an update on some of the emerging technologies some of our clients are asking for, you know, something, you know, anything that we're using or want to use. So as well as providing formal training, we also share all that knowledge across our internal communities as well. I don't know, Matt, if you want to add anything to that.
You pretty much summed that up very well there, Alan. Thank you. I think the key thing is we are in a journey with our customers. I know it's a very well often used adage, I suppose, but we are on a journey with all our customers. And as we see opportunity to use newer tech, newer ways of solving problems, and the customers have the appetite for that, we are very happy to pursue that. And our partners are always keen to help us have the right information at the right time in order to deliver on those. And we'll always lend expertise too. So we all learn off each other, including from the partners. And as that develops, then within, we disseminate that information internally to draw people into the projects. We have rotation through projects too, so everyone gets an exposure to newer technologies and the way we have solutionized them, how we've designed them, how we've delivered them, and how we're maintaining and operational use of them.
Yeah, just one thing to add as well, Matt, that we leverage our partnerships with AWS and Microsoft to, when it comes to new technologies, we're often one of the first to help test these out. So we have in the past and continue to do have you know, some direct line even to our Microsoft partnership teams and also the product groups that are developing these services, so that we can feed back, you know, if we've seen any issues, or you know, if we come across something that it doesn't do that we think it should, and then, you know, we leverage our partnerships to feed that back into the cloud providers so that they can better enhance their services.
Yeah, 100%. I believe we've even got members of our teams on innovation boards with our partnerships, and also MVP members, all those sort of things. So they, you know, we're constantly involved in the innovation of the technologies that our partners provide, and also the way we can solutionize them on top of those technologies.
Excellent, thank you so much. And I think we will have time for maybe one or two more questions. I suppose, Matt, with regards to the capability, it would be really interesting just to get your view on, you know, the community aspect, because obviously it's very difficult with us all working virtually at the minute. So it would really be great to give your perspective on that and how we're still able to have that type of community feel, even though we're all working from home.
Yeah, so it's a whole new world, isn't it, with remote working and all but 100% remote working in most cases. Alan hit on one of the areas that we use, so like working groups and community groups like the Azure Shack. That's one place where we're not only sharing a bit of, hey, this is what we're doing with technology now, but we're also having that time to socialize. You know, it's kind of replaced the, you know, I'll meet you at the coffee machine scenario quite often. And we're also doing that in our projects. And if we, you know, got a 2 or 3 hour call booked with a customer, we may burn like 30 minutes of that easily, just having a good conversation with everyone, sharing, being human, you know, and not just focusing on work all the time. And as those elements develop, you know, you learn a bit of trust, you know, develop a bit of relationship with both your colleagues and also your customers. It, you know, it gives you an all-round human experience. Sure, it's not quite the same as being in the office, and it's not quite being the same as going to the pub after school, so to speak. But you're trading off against all that commuting you used to have to do, Alan. I can imagine you were clocking in many hours of flight everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kenos has always had a big community feel to it. So Kenos has always run community events throughout the year, and it's obviously very difficult to do that when everyone is social distancing. So one of the more recent ones was to try and help keep that momentum. During the summer, we usually have like a summer barbecue in Belfast, and everyone gets together, and it's a bit of a social event. It's great. Obviously couldn't do that, so the past summer there, they offered a range of options that you could choose. So that there was gin tasting, for example, or you could join a virtual gin tasting event, or I foolishly chose a cook at home. I think it was Belfast Cookery School. So I thought I would do something very nice and cook my wife a meal, which went disastrously wrong, of course. So I probably would have been better off choosing the gin tasting event. But it's just a way that Kenos tries to keep that momentum going and try and keep that community feel and community spirit in with all their staff.
Amazing. I love that. And then finally, I suppose, just to kind of round off everything, I think this is quite a good one. How are we maintaining the same design rules, processes, practices, and learnings that, across all of the projects, ensuring they're all being followed?
Great question. Great question. So in Kenos, we have our own cloud practice. So within our own cloud practice, we are coming up with things like cloud accelerators. So we will look at industry trends and try and get on top of it. And then what we can do is we can put those guide rails in place for the digital delivery teams throughout the capability. And that will help them make the right informed choices for their clients. So it's not a free-for-all. There is a structure in place in Kenos that helps our delivery teams deliver quality for each of the customers.
We also draw on our successes from each of the projects and customer engagements that we've had, and via our CTO within the digital services, we've developed a form of a SharePoint thing under colophons, where we exhibit all the successes that we've had at different customers, and that in terms of what worked, what didn't work, and our learning experiences in each case. So it allows people to draw from those. It's a central point of intelligence or knowledge that people can draw from as they go into other bits of work. And you find common ground. You can find at least 2/3 of your solution is already there for you. And how do you then mold it to or make it malleable for the customers you're doing it for?
Fantastic. Okay, so I think that we've made really good time. For everyone that hasn't had a question answered, we will follow up with everyone after this event, and we will answer any remaining questions that we haven't got round to. I would like to say a massive thank you again to Matt, Alan, and Kim for doing this. Kim, this is your second go around with Tech Connect, so thank you again for lending your time to us. We really enjoyed having you speak at this one as well.
I love it. I'm hoping everyone found it useful, entertaining, and engaging.
Definitely. And again, thank you to everybody that has attended today. You're more than welcome to reach out to any of us on LinkedIn. We're more than happy to have conversations with you as well. And definitely, if there's anything that we can help you with moving forward, just let us know. But with regards to our next Tech Connect event, just follow us on LinkedIn and keep a lookout. And we should be doing another one very, very soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.